Welcome, and thank you for watching this demonstration of the Backtracking Technique's IR-informed interview. The backtracking technique is comprised of 3 data collection layers. In Layer 1, we retrieve institutional research data from IR archives. In Layer 2, we collect alumni employment data along with other educational updates from the students post-graduation. And Layer 3, which is the focus of this demonstration, is where we conduct IR-informed interviews to expand the depths of inquiry. In the clips ahead, please observe just some of the facilitators, hindrances, and critical junctures we capture about student pathways and the in-depth skill and training it takes to lead these interviews.
Welcome to our pilot training for the interview protocol for backtracking CTE pathways. This presentation seeks to provide a comprehensive overview of the entire interview process from preparation to post-interview housekeeping. Today, we're going to go over training objectives, explanation of procedure, and a demonstration of the procedure. At the end of the training, all the interviewers, will be able to identify and incorporate pertinent IR data into the survey using the appropriate resources before beginning the interview. Reliably follow the IRB protocol for opening and closing statements, obtaining permissions for recording and transcribing the interview, gather consistent, high-quality data through both pre-selected questions and those organically selected through the interview process, and perform essential follow-up tasks such as saving transcripts and recording links in the associated Google Sheet. The interview protocol uses 2 resources, the interview prep sheet and the interview questionnaire. If you notice that there's some information here in the snapshots that Faye took about employment, I did not put that into the interview yet because we wouldn't have that information. So it is in here. So it's in the back of my mind, but that's what's going to come up in the interview protocols. So I went through here again. Christy got her undergrads. I put it as AA because it was the closest approximation to it. So things are going to look a little different. So they have completed their degree. I don't know why I said no. No failed repeated low grade courses because there was a withdrawal from Calc. So nothing got recorded. And I put that in here, the retake in shorthand, just to make it easy, because I know that this information is not going to show up. I will have to type it again. Withdrawals and course taking, yes. There was the drop in GPA at that first year. There was academic probation, which Faye noted. And then I made that note here about a major change. Yes, but I made my caveat there that I will go into. Female, Black, no transfer, because just for the sake of brevity with this interview, because she didn't really. And then assuming at this point, I've put her as taking the alumni survey that we sent out saying that she was employed in their field. So now I'm sitting down with Christy. We've scheduled our interview and I'm going to start interviewing with her specifically. Do you consent to this interview? You may withdraw consent at any time and your record will be discarded.
Yes, I do.
Yes. Okay. So I've hit consent. And before I've ever started recording, do we have your permission to record this interview?
Yes, you do.
Okay. And now I've started recording. I've now pressed the button to record and would like to confirm that previously you gave me permission to do so. For the record, do we have your permission to record?
Yes, you do.
Okay. Interviewer start live transcription. This is going to be a you have to click this before you can go on question. Okay. So I see that you retook Calculus 1 in spring of 92 after withdrawing from it in fall of 91, which would have been your sophomore year. How did your approach change, if at all, from the time you didn't pass the course to the time that you did?
Well, I talked with other students who took the course and got some strategies about how to be more successful in that course. And I also, learned how to prioritize my schedule and my time. It was early during my early years, freshman and sophomore years, and so I needed to get a better handle of my time management skills.
Were you a math minor at this point already?
I was.
Okay. Was this your first math class that you took towards that?
It was, to my recollection.
Can you tell me about the circumstances resulting in that withdrawal from calculus? Was it after you'd been in there for a while, like up to the point was like last deadline to withdraw, or was it pretty early on?
If I recall, it was near the deadline, if I recall. Right.
Did you have repeated bad grades, or you said your time management needed to be honed
Right.
a little bit more, so just not completing assignments or
Time management, yeah, and just priorities were all over the place at that time, coming from a small town and going to this big university, and with a lot of distractions, and yeah, it was a big change from the environment that I grew up in, and so just needed to prioritize. And plus, I also talked to my mother, who sternly encouraged me to rethink things.
rethink just taking that class at that time, or altogether?
Rethink life.
Oh, okay. Okay. You said your mother, right? That I
Yeah,
heard that
yeah.
right? Okay.
Yes.
So, and then that first year, it seems that you were on academic probation and your GPA dropped. Can you tell me a little bit about the circumstances, if they're any different from what you've already said?
Along the same lines.
Along the same lines. Yeah. It was all just kind of a shock to you.
It really was.
Yeah.
I graduated from high school with honors, so I knew that I had the ability, and like I tell, I have to put this in your students all the time. You can have the ability, but if you don't,
Right.
have good time management skills, and be able to prioritize, and being able to learn how to say no to certain things. I mean, I had to grow up.
Gotcha.
And so, yeah. And after that time period, as you probably see in my notes, that I didn't go below a 3.0 after that.
Yeah, it seems that you, according to your data, that you got better GPA over and over every semester. It went up higher, so something was working.
And I had to let some people go, and I had to really surround myself with some people that were serious about, getting, doing well in school.
What led you to pursue your AA degree?
What led me to pursue my AA degree? Mentors. I saw, I had an older sister who was, preceded me in college. So, and I also had parents that were educated and had gone to college. My mother, well, when I was young, she stayed in school for several master's degrees and several certificates and things of that nature. So I knew the importance of.
You said that was your mother who got several master's degrees? Okay.
And certificates. And so my mother was an educator. And I saw the importance of getting my education.
Okay. So how did you use your degree upon completion? Did you go directly into the workforce, or did you transfer?
I went directly into the workforce. I worked for United Parcel Service as a manager supervisor.
As a manager supervisor? Okay.
Yeah.
And was this was there any overlap between your employment and you doing your degree, or was it right after? Oh, there wasn't. Okay. About how much you said?
For the last 2 years of college, I would work. I worked with UPS during my off time. So for any break that we had, whether it was Christmas or summer, I came home and I went home and worked with UPS.
Okay.
Even after graduating, they offered me a position.
Okay. And so I'm going to pretend that I don't know what prompted this change here for you to go back.
Okay.
But so there was a major change, but it wasn't after you got your degree. It was when you went back to school. You returned for software engineering after being a psych major, math minor. What prompted that change? Could you share?
Well, the position that I was working at, that I held at UPS, during that time period, it was in the late, well, it's not applicable to probably your students, but it was in the late 90s, mid to late 90s. And technology was being introduced quite a bit at UPS at that time. It was changing the way we processes. It was just changing a lot of our tasks. And so I was also over that in the customer service area as well. And so, and then I also ran across who became one of my mentors. I listened to a research presentation that she gave while I was in grad school in psychology. I was going to get my master's in counseling. But I saw her presentation and found it interesting and reached out to her, and yeah, that made me want to at least sit in and take one course over in the computer science department, and eventually found myself changing my major to software engineering. So UPS paid for a portion of my master's degree, and that fellowship paid for the latter half after I quit UPS and
Okay.
full-time practice student. But it was a lifesaver to a lot of us, especially African American students on campus, no matter what your major. But I grew up in the church, and there was an organization, an African American choral ensemble, and that was our lifeline. So we just we even had a reunion not too long ago, but that even new students who are coming through University of Georgia, they latch on to that organization. It helps. We supported each other.
Mhm.
Again, no matter what your major was, but it also, we encourage each other from a spiritual standpoint, as well.
So you've mentioned a couple times now that your family had a real big push in your education. So do you see that mostly as an influence or a positive influence, or as a hindrance for your success?
I would say there's some pros and cons to that. Yeah, there's some pros and cons to that, because I don't know, it is not a counseling session. No, I know.
Yeah, I know. That's why I look at my time and I'm like, do we have time to go into this?
Right, let me tell you, honey. But yeah, I had an older sister who did not finish college. She started it, and both of us, again, were honor students, and things of that nature. But she didn't finish initially. She did not start out. I mean, she went later in life, came back and finished college. But that was a motivator, because that disappointed my parents, and I was still at home. She was gone. She's 5 years older than me. So I saw their disappointment. That pushed me, and I think me being on academic probation initially was frightening them, thinking that I was going to end up the same way, and not finish. And so that's why I made a change and said, no, I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm not going to be that way. I'm going to, show them. And so I'll try to make them happy, and so I think that was a motivator for sure, is to not disappoint them.
Yeah.
And to make them proud.
The resources that were beneficial to you as a member of an underserved group while pursuing your degree. You've mentioned, the chorus ensemble, the choral ensemble a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that was a resource that was very beneficial for you. But if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, definitely that. Service organizations on campus, service organizations.
Were they specifically geared to help minority students, or were they just broad service organizations?
They were, as well as, there were fraternity sororities, but there were also outreach activities and things of that nature that you participated in some of their activities. And I would also say church,
What was your opinion of diversity on campus? I already know the answer to this one, but what was your opinion? Was it ever an issue, feeling not understood or lack of exclusion? And if you could go into some detail.
All of the above. Yes, it was very lonely at times. Even in the dorm, there were very few of us on our hall, or in, we were very, sprinkled throughout. But it was, yeah, it was a lot. It was sometimes it was overwhelming, and it very intimidating in class for sure. where, you may have had a question and you not be confident, enough to ask the question, or
Mhm.
I mean, in cliquish, a lot of groups had their cliques, and so so you had to learn how to maneuver, and how to how to first of all, I had to learn how to speak up for myself, and I also, building these relationships outside of those scary environments helped me build my confidence, and helped me feel like I belong there. That my Like I said, the choral ensemble, the
Mhm.
lifesaver. The director of the organization, was a professor there. He still is, and he's there. He was he's divinely put there for a lot of us, because that was our, um, he knew that we needed to see each other, no matter our majors, but we got together, and we encouraged each other. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think we have to be prepared for a couple of scenarios. A scenario in which a person is just giving you one-word answers to your questions, and how to draw that person out a little bit more and get some detail. And kind of on the flip side of that is if you get somebody who's giving you a lot of rich data, maybe to the point where it starts kind of consuming a lot of your limited time, how you kind of redirect that person to go along. So this interview is both technical and psychological. So of course, it's one reason why we wanted to make sure that people who enjoy talking to people, or are working toward that, are the interviewers that we have here. And just because people, you never know who's going to be at the other end of the interview. But also that brings up another kind of thought about estimating maybe the amount of time each block should take. And maybe that's something we can talk about ahead of time, because I think that really could be informed by the IR, because if they're, where the critical junctures appear to be, those sections are probably ones that you should have a sense may take a little bit longer, because there's a story there and you don't know how long the story is. So just to make sure that you're keeping yourself on time, because getting through the extent of the interview protocol is kind of the goal, even though getting these really good stories is also really part of the goal. Another issue that I think we're going to want to be thinking of too, and this is something that we can accomplish through the Qualtrics form, is also little prompts to just remind you to ask things like, oh, you had resume preparation services. When did you do that? Because people may tell you these things in the context of the immediate question, or they may tell you later, or they won't tell you at all. But the timing of these particular kinds of interventions is one of the things that we need to get out of these interviews, because that's going to make the difference between saying, well, experiential learning is a really good thing to do in your 2-year degree program, and the difference between people who take an internship after their second semester tend to do better in the long run. So if we're not capturing that when as well as the what, then I think it's a missed opportunity for us. But it can be really hard to remember if you're not getting that information in kind of a linear fashion, that you may need to come back and just get some temporal fixation on the event. And Christy, I learned so much about you in that interview, and what an absolutely small world that pastor's the guy who baptized you. I mean,
And they're my second parents, and they were my second parents. Yeah. It was a
and I
small
think the last thought I just wanted to say about that, and if that didn't make you feel like you were in the right place at the right time once you found that out, I mean, there are these moments of serendipity that people are going to get to relive in the interviews, and that's really powerful. So these interviews really do benefit the participant in being able to look over their lives and understand their own lives better, as well as understanding us. So, you know, I think it's a
It
beautiful.
felt like a counseling session. It really did.
One of the things that you have to remember is that we're here to look for facilitators of the experience, hindrances of the experience, and critical junctures.
One of the hardest skills to develop is listening and typing.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
So if you can practice, I did transcribing when I first moved down here. So there's a little bit of that I can do, but if you really should be practicing that outside of the setting, summarizing while listening. Pull your girlfriend out and say, hey, tell me a story and summarize it, because it's really difficult to do. And that's why I kept asking her to make sure, because I couldn't even hear over my own typing sometimes. And I just want to make sure I was getting the right people that she mentioned.
Did you see all that Michelle was doing? She's taking it in, listening to it, digesting it, writing it down, and then going back to make sure she didn't do that. And I was like, Michelle, if you can, you know, because it's a lot. You know what I'm saying? And it's still possible to miss things, right? Because as you're interviewing, talking, digesting, and looking at chat, that was pretty awesome that she could do all those things at one time. And so again, thank you all so much, and for going over the extra 24 minutes. We appreciate it.
Thanks for chatting with me, Christy.
No, I loved it. I enjoyed it. Take
Thanks.
care.
Bye,
y'all.
Alicia.
Thanks,
Thank you.
y'all.
Bye, y'all.
Have
Bye-bye.
a good day.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. This was fascinating. We'll see you all soon.